Yeah. Hey, everyone. We're just talking about the plagues that afflicted the Pharaoh. Just Old Testament stuff, just randomly. I'm with Olivia Troye, national security expert. Her entire career was in counterterrorism and national security. She served in the first Trump administration, realized that that man is a dangerous authoritarian, and quit. She has a fantastic Substack, Olivia of Troy, and there's so much we have to talk about. So we usually do this once a month, but Olivia was busy healing. Now she's back, fully healed, rested. And the framing of today is
COVID.
the
It's real.
axis of evil,
Yeah.
specifically Trump, Netanyahu, and Putin, and how they're creating wars to stay in power. And there's so much to talk about, folks. We have to talk about the latest news about this Venezuela strike, which is a huge story that not enough people are covering. And now just news reports came out in the New York Times that this Venezuela boat filled with drug dealers, no evidence, was actually turning back before Trump unilaterally and illegally blew it up. We also have the big news that Israel decided, we bombed Lebanon, we bombed Yemen, we bombed Syria, we bombed Gaza. Let's go bomb Qatar. Oh, the place that is a non-NATO ally that has the largest U.S. base. Let's just bomb it. And as I was talking to Olivia, Trump has now contradicted himself three times. Did he give permission? Did he not give permission? Did he know? Did he not know? And then this was like when we decided to talk. And then late last night, I sent a text to Olivia. I'm like, oh, hey, look, Russia and Poland. Poland, for those who don't know, has the largest army. It's the European NATO country with the largest army. So Russia now, just coincidentally, after Donald Trump laid out the red carpet for Russia, he has done pretty much what Russia has wanted. And now Russia drones were shot down by Poland. Oh, nothing to worry about. So spinning the wheel. Where do you want to land
Yeah.
on first?
I don't know, man. I even I rarely write notes for myself, but there was so much that I'm gonna show you. I have like this, and I'm terrible about keeping it straight because I just wing it. But I'm like, man, I don't even know where to start covering this, except for maybe we should start with how's that Nobel Peace Prize working out for Trump?
Ah, yes,
How's
yes.
that going? Yeah,
America
because I
first.
think that's gone down the toilet right now. So, and I think that's what actually, I don't think he cares about what's happening in the world or the America's stability in the eyes of the world or global stability. I think what he's probably most pissed off about right now is the fact that the Nobel Peace Prize is looking like a very far distant thing to him. That's actually probably what Donald Trump is worried about today.
Actually, Libby, you're not completely wrong because people who think she's just being cheeky, I want to remind y'all that the reason he isolated Modi at India, Modi is a fascist leader, but the reason why he was extra aggressive against India and doubled the tariffs was, wait for it, because Modi wouldn't support his bid for the Nobel Peace Prize. Just pure mean girl pettiness. And then also another big piece of news that we should talk about that no one's talking about is it was last week, I think, Olivia. Oh, Putin, Modi, Kim Jong un, and President Xi of China publicly meeting without Donald Trump. Huh, huge news. So, anyway, another thing to add, Olivia, we should write
I
that
know
down.
he's probably, and he felt left out of that because as a wannabe dictator, although I mean, he pretty much is. We're living in the Trump regime right now. That he was pissed that he wasn't in that group because he idolizes those people, right? And so the group met and they pushed the U.S. out, and they know that given all these things, I think kind of to pull the thread through all of these things is the fact that when it comes to what's happening with Russia and Poland, right, what they just did, the drone attack, which is not normal, just to be clear. This isn't normal. And, Poland has now enacted Article 4, which is basically like, hey, we're feeling threatened. Let's convene, want to talk to our NATO allies because they came for us. It's not Article 5, so they haven't actually launched defenses, but they're kind of sitting here going, what is really happening here? We need to discuss this, and we feel like our stability is being compromised. And I was thinking about this, and like basically it all points to Trump being a puppet
There you go.
for Russia, a Trump puppet for Israel. Because all of these peace negotiations that he's got going on, where he's pretending to be the strong man and he's got control over it, and he's going to bring peace and he's going to bring stability, right? None of these things are working out. And he's been played. That's what all of this shows, right? I mean, that is exactly what's happening here. And I think, Israel's attack on Qatar, like, we have major forces there. And they have been a major player in advancing U.S. interests in the region for years. And so I think, like, so which one is it? When you were talking about Trump, the first thing he said out of the gate was, oh, he knew about it, right? So whose side are you on? And by the way, Putin and Israel, who used to be a strong ally for the U.S., right? I think they're undermining the U.S. and the world stability and on the world stage, as you and I have discussed previously. So, like, all of this, I think, in this moment, just goes to show that all of these summits, all of this pomp and circumstance and theatrics that Trump has led everyone around, as a person who ran, by the way, that all wars would end and he would be the peace broker and there would be no wars. I mean, we are in a period of great instability, greater than what we've seen in years past.
I mean, I think the big picture, and we'll break it down. You're absolutely right. I think I described Donald Trump yesterday as a corrupt, compromised criminal. It seems clear, Olivia, that Russia has compromised him. We don't know how specifically. I think there's much to be. I think you should follow the money trail. But clearly, he's enamored with Vladimir Putin. He laid out the red carpet for him. He's promoted Russia propaganda. He's only put conditions on Vladimir Zelensky. He said, Ukraine invaded Russia. No, complete BS. Everything that Russia has wanted in this presidency ever since that really just pathetic, shameful performance where Vladimir Putin, the red carpet was laid out, Donald Trump, shook his hand. Vladimir Putin came out. He addressed the nation first. He spoke in Russian, folks. That was very important because that rarely happens. He spoke for 8 to 9 minutes. Donald Trump spoke for 2 minutes. They went in the car. It clearly they were having a meeting. And
I
then
would love
since
to
then,
know what happened in the Beast.
right? You saw the video,
Alone.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What did he talk
What
about?
did they discuss is what I would love to know.
And ever since then, if you've noticed, everything's gone the way of Russia. And I'll give 3 examples to bolster what you're saying, because I think you're completely right, is that Trump is being played by Putin and Netanyahu. And I want to give an example of how he's gone played by Netanyahu is first and foremost, after Vladimir Putin left, a news item that I always try to remind folks of, keep the receipt. Randomly, I don't know if I know you know this, the 37 current and former intelligence officers who had their security clearance
Yeah.
revoked. Can you remind people about that? That just happened
Yeah.
2 weeks
I
ago?
mean, this just happened, a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
where unilaterally people that had worked on Russia, people who were experts on this, people who had been along the way, literally had their security clearances revoked, which, by the way, means that they've lost their jobs. They've lost their ability to do the work that they were doing. And it's also because it was inconvenient truth to Trump, right? That's what it is. And so we have all these experts, and that happened right after the summit,
Yep.
which is not coincidental to me, right? I mean, Tulsi Gabbard decided all of a sudden they're going to clean house on these experts after he met with them. After, by the way, did you see the reporting where they had blocked the intelligence sharing on the summit to our Five Eyes, our partners and our
Yes.
allies,
That
in
was
the
the
lead up
second
to
thing else.
it?
Yep.
Yes. I mean, that is insane. We're not going to share the information in the lead up to this really incredibly important meeting with Putin. We're just going to hang on to it. Whose side are we on? And that's what I keep saying, right? I mean, if I were NATO, if I were Europe, and we know that they're doing this, they're watching us, and they're like, we can't count on you. We can't count on the United States. And you're also leading us to bad situations. I mean, we haven't even mentioned what's happening to the Abraham Accords now.
Oh, that's cool. But can I mention
How's peace? Yeah.
big piece of news also from last week? And I would just, folks, if you think, oh, Olivia and Waj are suffering from TDS, we're just trying to connect all the dots, and we're giving you the evidence. Okay.
Yep.
Last week, Trump to end security aid for Europe's armies near Russia. Allies are confused why the Trump administration is halting what may amount to hundreds of millions of dollars in security funding to those European nations bordering Russia. Okay, what happened last night, Olivia, for the people who haven't followed the news?
Yeah, there were 19 drones invading Poland airspace that they had to be shot down. This is unprecedented. I mean, they've done it before, but they had not to the extent that they did it. And so, like, how's that working out? Because what they're showing, what Russia's showing, is that they don't care. They're testing the limits and the boundaries. And candidly, they're testing our relationship with NATO. They're
There you go.
testing Donald Trump. They're testing the US. And where has Trump's statements been on this? I've literally been refreshing and go, has he said anything yet? What has he said?
Oh yeah, he did. Hold on. Donald Trump. I just shared it. Okay. Uh, what's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Here we go.
What does the here we go mean?
You tell me. This was
Wait,
about 45 minutes ago.
here we go?
Yeah. I'm going to
Okay.
quote it again. What's with Russia violating Poland's airspace with drones? Question mark. Here we go! Exclamation point.
Well, I don't know. Why don't you ask your incompetent leader at the Department of Defense to explain that one? And why don't you explain the fact that you're reducing troop levels and aid to these countries? And why don't you tell us why your negotiations with this peace brokering with Putin at the summit apparently appear to be failing? Right? I mean, and I was thinking about this in the context of, and we can get into this. I mean, we are in September. Yesterday, the United Nations General Assembly month kicked off in New York. And I bring this up because I actually, like a little known fact, I was Pence's United Nations lead.
Mm,
And so I used to run the delegation visit coordination every year while I was in the White House for Pence. And so I used to schedule the meetings, do the delegations, decide what events we were going to do, and the engagement. And I am just thinking about the fact that this is all happening right now, coming to a head in this lead up to this critical international meeting of leaders. And and I feel like I should mention this. Are you tracking the fact that Marco Rubio, our favorite, person at the helm of the State Department that continues to compromise himself and his ethics and his morals and everything that he has previously stood for. And I say this because he used to be a champion for individual human rights, champion for democracy.
yep.
They have banned visas
We
for the
covered that.
Palestinian leadership, right? So, I mean, when you compile that on top with what Israel's doing right now we have this meeting. Now you've got these leaders that are not going to be able to attend. They're considering moving. Did you see recently they just said they're considering moving the meeting to Geneva because they're also worried that they're going to ban visas to Brazil and other countries. And Brazil is all based on the fact that he's pissed off that Bolsonaro is being held accountable, something that we
And then
can't seem to do in our country.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because I was talking to a couple of friends yesterday who were planning to go to the United Nations General Assembly. The shameful that it's just it's going to happen anyway. But the fact that countries are voting to move the United Nations General
Yeah,
Assembly from
it's
New York
crazy.
to Europe because to protest what America is doing, and folks, when we mentioned this earlier this week, but Marco Rubio, what he's done is he's not restricting the visa of people accused of being Hamas or terrorists. Mahmoud Abbas, we're talking about like Palestinian Authority. We're talking about,
Leader.
these are leaders because you need the visa to come to America. So they're like, oh, no, not you. So going back full circle about Olivia saying that he's getting played, Donald Trump is being played in real time by Vladimir Putin. He's being played by Netanyahu. I use the word Olivia, dog walked by both these people, and this is where we could and to prove the point, we can talk about what's happening in Israel and Qatar. Yes, there's a lot of news, folks. We'll connect the dots,
Yeah.
I promise. But I want to remind folks that, and you mentioned also, Olivia, he was an America First president. He promised the base. A large part of this base really actually is all in on America First. That means non-interventionism, no new wars for the sake of Israel, invest that money in America. Okay, so what did Donald Trump do? He got dog walked by Netanyahu yet again, literally got fooled into bombing Iran, like literally taking us almost to World War III. Even then, he effed up, didn't destroy the uranium, right? Thank God there was diplomacy, the tension simmered, but he, on behalf of Israel, then bombed Iran. And then Israel, yes, folks, Israel with this war criminal Netanyahu, in addition to the genocide in Gaza, another thing people haven't really focused on is Israel in the past 2 years has launched 35,000 targeted strikes against Gaza, West Bank, Yemen, Lebanon, Iran, Syria, And then yesterday, Qatar. And then Israel said yesterday, Olivia, oh, yeah, we did it in coordination with the United States of America. But then Trump is like, oh, no, we didn't know. So talk to us about that yesterday, because I still think that's a huge piece of news that Israel goes
Yeah.
after Qatar.
Oh, it's enormous. I mean, I've been at Qatar. I've been to the military bases there in preparation for other operations. Like, they're a huge ally. We have troops there. They're a significant part of what is happening in the Middle East. And so I think what happened yesterday was clear, like, shows one, we should talk about the hostages, because I think that this pretty much, like, I don't know
They don't care
now
about the
where that
hostages.
stands. That is what I was going to say. That shows that he doesn't care,
Yep.
right? They've escalated this thing. And I'm calling BS on the fact that they didn't know about the strike. That's just not how it works in national security.
Hmm.
And so I just, I think Trump will always tell you initially, because he can't help himself, he'll say it. So I would go off of his initial, like, whatever he says, blurts it out, is usually how it is. But, like, I mean, I don't believe that we were not giving a heads up,
And even like,
especially, especially because we have troops there.
that's what I'm
And
saying.
I mean,
Let's
yeah.
just play it out. Let's just play it out both ways, because both ways is bad. Let's say Israel unilaterally went and struck Qatar without any involvement of the United States or any blessing of the United States. Why would that be bad, Olivia?
Well, because they've totally breached another country in this whole regional situation, and our troops are there, by the way, right? And for us, and Israel, who, has proclaimed and has always been the ally to the United States in the region, now has acted and compromised our stability. And also, again, what we were talking about earlier, the fact that this is a country that has, in many situations, played sort of like the peacemaker, the negotiator on numerous things, right? And so I think from their leadership, and you're seeing it, right? Their response is just like, well, wait a second. Now we've been struck, and we are now in this precarious situation when we've been actually in the middle of trying to negotiate these things in good faith with the US. And now we have the situation that happens. Okay, perhaps Israel did not consult us on it and just did it on their own, which also, by the way, if that's the case, also points to the fact that Donald Trump has no control, no actual links, no actual power as a head of a state in diplomacy. That's what that says, right?
It's
If
weakness,
they didn't
right?
consult. Yes.
Yeah. If they didn't consult, Netanyahu looks at you like his, pardon my language, bitch. You're his poodle. They don't give a shit. They
They
realize you're
don't care.
compromised. They realize you'll give them a green light to do everything with U.S. money, with U.S. weapons, with U.S. diplomatic support, to the point where they'll escalate this war and even attack an ally, a non-NATO ally, Qatar, where, like you said, the largest U.S. military presence outside of United States is in Qatar. And so either you're
Yeah.
weak, or then the flip side, Olivia. Suppose they said, "Hey, Donald, I'm gonna go attack Qatar," and Donald's like, "Okay, go ahead and do it." Why is that bad?
Because now we are coordinating against someone who has been an ally in the middle of the latest ceasefire proposal. Right? So that's that's part of the conversation here too, is that I don't see any progress on these ceasefire operations, right? And what's happening here. And then I also wonder, I wonder what Jared Kushner must be thinking too. We haven't really mentioned his name, but he considers himself the king of Middle East policy. He always has. He did during Trump 1.0. I just saw an article that said, like, he's kind of back in the mix and he's really focused on this and he's going to be the key player. I'm curious to see what he would say about this situation.
And also, did you see yesterday, which was really interesting, speaking about Kushner and his cozy relationship with Saudi Arabia and the fact that
Yeah.
these Gulf states gave him billions of dollars to start up his fund? Oh, as one does. Saudi Arabia came out yesterday with a really like a strong, stern statement warning, like being really critical of Israel's
Yes.
strike on Qatar. That was something interesting also. Saudi Arabia usually doesn't do that. They came out publicly.
Yeah. And I think it's a sign, like, Israel's striking soil of a mediator, right? That's what they've done. And so if I were in the region, I would be like, okay, we are not making progress And I would also say the United States clearly isn't looking out for global interests. So why should they be compromising themselves? And I think I can totally see a situation where they're trying to figure out like how they bring regional stability and the fact that Israel is doing these things, right? And I mean, Israel's not making any friends. We know this, but we are the United States being used as a pawn in this whole situation. And I think that's from a national security perspective. I think that's what a lot of people are like very concerned about right now that the situation has happened.
Yeah, exactly. Like, Donald Trump is being used by war criminals for their authoritarian ambitions. Netanyahu, as we know, and his extremist government, they want it all, river to the sea. They like Smotrich, Ben Gvir, Likud, Netanyahu, they don't hide it, right? And Netanyahu, much like Bolsonaro, much like Donald Trump, right,
Yeah.
is a corrupt leader. He needs to stay in power, folks, for those who don't follow Israeli politics, because the second a war ends, his own people will turn against him and he will be most likely held accountable for his numerous criminal allegations of corruption. He will, at the very least, not become a prime minister again, or at worst, he will probably go to jail. So, how do you prolong that? Forever war. And that's the pitch he's made to the Israeli people. You might not like me, but I'm the one keeping you safe. Is he keeping him safe? I don't know. He doesn't care, right? He's a man who wants to stay in power. So, all right, he'll bomb Lebanon, Syria, Yemen. Let's go bomb Qatar now. Let's like a friend of mine yesterday was in national security. He gave me this example, which I thought was really good, especially talking about what's happening with Poland and Russia. He said, "This is the raptor in Jurassic Park, the first Jurassic Park, testing the fence.
Mhm.
The raptors testing the fence." Talk to us about then Russia playing Donald Trump and testing the fence to see what they could get away with right now with this weak president.
Well, I think that's what I was looking at, right? I think what's happened here is that all of these situations are just additional devastating blows to Donald Trump and the United States, because he is a leader of the United States right now, in terms of our credibility on the world stage. That's what's happened here, right? And so uh, I mean, there's so many different ways that this could go. I mean, there's fallout. It's hurting our relationships overseas, whether it's with NATO, whether it's with the Middle East region. I think also, I mean, these peace talks, this whole, and I say peace talks in quotes because I mean, we're obviously not the champions or doing a good job on those. What's to say that people they're just not going to pull out of it? Like, why would you engage in this situation in terms of this? And like, what happens in the wider Arab world in this situation too, right? So, I mean, and didn't I mean Qatar welcomed him, right? They rolled out the red carpet. So, like, I think with all of this, I think with these escalations, I think my biggest concern is that we have inept leadership at the helm as these things continue. And these are very serious situations here that are happening globally. And I don't know. It's like we have a rudderless ship right now with someone who's focused on himself. And we've got people who are just going to do his bidding, who are incompetent and who are focused on other things.
And I think this pains me to say because I think even Putin is a bit desperate. He projects strength, but that doesn't mean he's actually strong. But he's smart, and I think Putin won. I think he won in the war with the United States of America. He destabilized America without firing a shot. He has a compromised, weakened, Bulgarian criminal president who, for whatever reason, we still don't know, but I'm sure it goes back to money. It does his bidding. No matter what happens with Putin or Russia and its own ambitions, right? America's effed. America's isolated. The economy is in shambles. No one trusts us. 30% of this country believes, in facts that belong on Earth 3. Europe is moving away from America. They're creating their own trade partnerships. They're creating their own security partnerships openly. For those who are joining us late, 1,000 people joining us. I'm with Olivia Troye, national security expert, counterterrorism expert, who was in the first Trump administration and then resigned because she's like, oh yeah, this guy's a corrupt, compromised authoritarian. Um, we also see Modi, Xi of China, and Putin very publicly sitting together, smiling. They're not stupid folks. That was a very deliberate public
Oh, for
photo.
sure.
thumbing the nose at United States and Trump and the world and saying this is a new world order, the new axis. Donald Trump is old. He's aging. He wants the Nobel Peace Prize. He wants money and prayers to get to heaven. He thinks he's the smartest person in the room. Everyone knows he's an idiot. People know, and you know this, Olivia, that the rumor was that Donald Trump repeats the last thing that is said into his ear.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
can you talk to us about that, and which is what foreign leaders know and they're openly talking about? And I'll give you an example, folks. I think it was the New York Times that said they quoted a foreign diplomat when Donald Trump, in his grift, was literally inviting people to buy his crypto and said, whoever buys the most, they're going to get a private dinner with me. Everyone around the world were like, this is awesome. We'll just spend a couple of $1 million, buy his crypto, and then we get access to Donald Trump.
Yeah, this corruption, it's just basically our presidency and our activists are for sale. That's basically the bottom line, right? I mean, highest bidder, pay to play, pay for access. And it doesn't matter because they don't care. He doesn't care about the well-being of Americans. We've seen that, right? If he did, they wouldn't be doing like the majority of the policies that they're doing here domestically. And so I think it's just about building their empire and making their billions, which is why every day what there's a new crypto coin with one of his sons on it or something. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculous. It's kind of like I've lost track. But like I think globally, I would say that we are on the decline.
Yeah.
And that I think ultimately really hurts us in the long run because we are going to have a lot to recover from if we can ever get this guy out of office. It's going to take years in terms of
Generational
trust, in
damage.
terms of stability. Yeah, this is not, this is not a today problem. This is a decades problem of what we're doing here every single day. And I look, and we haven't even talked. I mean, we talked about it before we went on, but like, we're now just going to unilaterally bomb boats and waters?
No, I was gonna take it domestically, and folks, we have two more pegs we haven't even touched upon, and Olivia led me right to it. We haven't even talked about Venezuela, and I think this is huge news. We've been trying to cover it here on the Left Hook, and I think it
Yes.
also relates to what's happening domestically. We tried to connect the dots, and I want to connect it with Olivia. And just some breaking news on this story for those who haven't followed. Real quick, last week the Trump administration argued that by unilaterally extrajudicially killing 11 people in a Venezuelan boat in international waters, they were justified because that was apparently low-level drug traffickers. No evidence released, no names of the victims. Many folks are saying actually they weren't drug traffickers at all, but were actually migrants. Regardless, so even if they were drug traffickers, the president of the United States does not have the authority to extrajudicially assassinate and bomb 11 people
Yeah.
in international waters. As a result of that, Venezuela then flew its planes around our Navy ships because, we have boats there
Yep.
with Venezuela. When he was called out on it for these war crimes online by Brian Krasenstein, JD Vance responded, well, I don't give a shit. And then today, we just found out on the New York Times, the boat suspected of smuggling drugs is said to have turned before U.S. attacked it. And specifically in the piece, they're like, oh, I think we're being followed by like planes. So to be safe, they're like, oh, let's just turn back. And so as they were turning back, they were blown up. Why is this such a big deal, Olivia?
Because we're just basically violating international law and norms. And I think when we do it to them, this is what I think it's coming. And you can call me on it later if it doesn't happen, but because this frightens me, especially because I've got relatives there and everything. But they're not going to stop at Venezuela. That was just the beginning. And I'm telling you this because I have been in meetings with people like Stephen Miller, where his dream is to start bombing Mexico. And so I think that the next strikes we're going to see, maybe not like I think Mexico is next. And if I were Mexico and I were the president of Mexico, I would be paying close attention. If I were anyone in Latin America, I would be sitting there going, okay, we need to decide collectively as a region. If I were them, I would be sitting down together and being like, we are not going to stand for this violation by the US. who, by the way, is behaving now like who? Places like Russia, those types of countries that don't care about international norms, don't care about alliances, don't care about the fact that we we should not be unilaterally doing this. I mean, where is the international standard here? For us, we're setting example, which is why I guess we threw out the human rights reports, right? Which is why we're not participating in any of that, because we're like, hey, we don't want to be subject to that because we're going to violate everything that we stand for as a country, as a democracy. And I think that's what's coming. Washington, I don't say that lightly, but I think having seen the planning of and the discussions along the way, because Stephen Miller always talks about cartels and the narcos and everything. And look, nobody is backing the narcos and the cartels. We're not sitting here backing terrorists. But what I'm saying is that, like, we can't just unilaterally start bombing countries. I mean, it's almost like a declaration of war.
You listen, you mentioned Stephen Miller. I'm so glad because I wanted to connect it to America because I think that's the missing piece that people
Yes.
aren't talking about as it's happening in real time with the National Guard being deployed. However, you got my attention on bombing Mexico. What did Stephen Miller tell you in that first Trump administration? What?
Yeah, I mean, no, this has been the thing. Like, he really believes that we should be bombing cartels. And it came up. What was really frightening to me is that actually this came up if you go back, and I think it was sort of like, I mean, there's so much news every single day. Uh, During the primary for the Republican presidential nominee, where Nikki Haley was talking about what to do with cartels. And if you go back to this past election cycle, you're going to see Republican candidates grappling with this topic of it. And this has always been one of the things where Stephen Miller is like, let's just go in and bomb people. Let's just go in and take care of this. And then they use that to tie it to America First agenda. They use that to tie it to what their actions are here, right? Because they're always saying that, like, everyone's a criminal, everyone's a terrorist, everyone's a cartel person. And that's why ICE is all over our streets. And that's why the National Guard is deployed here. It's all part of one comprehensive narrative that they are selling. And so I think, to the average American, when they're telling them, oh, we're bombing these people because we're protecting you and our country, I think that's the cloak that I think Stephen Miller believes he wants to use.
And folks, I just wanted you to say it. You were inside the rooms. You know these freaks. You've worked with them, and then you resigned. I'm so glad you said it because that's what I've been teasing out. What's happening with Venezuela is connected directly to the war I called the war in America, the war against America. Stephen Miller is, I believe, one of the two shadow presidents. It's him and Russell Vought. The Wall Street
Yes.
Journal said that it was Stephen Miller who unleashed masked armed ICE agents in Los Angeles against Home Depot and 7-Eleven. It was Stephen Miller. And Stephen Miller deliberately wanted escalation. The words that Stephen Miller used are as America is under invasion, which was his justification for the Alien Enemies Act, which has only been invoked during times of war. In the very rare one, I think one of two times that this corrupt Supreme Court has gone against this administration, they said, no, you can't invoke the Alien Enemies Act. And Stephen Miller and Donald Trump were like, whatever. And Stephen Miller used the word invasion. Stephen Miller also, Olivia, and I always
Yes.
try to keep receipts, used the word insurrection. And what
Yeah.
happens with the Insurrection Act, Olivia? Can you tell people if the president declares the Insurrection Act, what can he do to the American people?
Well, actually, it just revokes, it consolidates power, is basically what it is. And so you're going to see the military on the streets. And I actually think that this is all tied to the elections.
I please, you say it.
Am I
I've said
wrong?
it, no one believes me. You say it.
Okay. No. And I'm not conspiratorial. Sorry, excuse me. But, like, I'm saying, like, I think this is laying the groundwork to maintain power. And so they want control. Then there's going to be military control where they can use this on the streets. They can use the military against its people. We're seeing that sort of being tested now, right? We're seeing them push the boundaries. I was just in DC last night with poor National Guard troops walking around, and they're like, literally, they look bored out of their minds. Some of them looked so depressed. I felt like bad for some of them because I'm like, their morale is deep. There's actually a New York Times article, I think it was New York Times, anyways, where it
The
talks about the
shame?
morale.
Yeah.
Morale, right? Did you see that? Whereas Washington Post, I don't know which publication it was, but just like how depressed and how just ashamed they are, which is just, it's, to me, it hurts me. It hurts my heart because, like, these are people that signed up to serve. And instead of helping in times of need or whatever, this is how they're being used. And that's all it is, right? They're being used as part of a greater narrative here. And so back to your Insurrection Act point, like, I think that this is another way to continue this aggression on the American people for full control. I mean, this is all part of this playbook and agenda that's that's pretty much all laid out. Go back to this, to Project 2025, right?
I've been saying this for a while, and I say this because uh, I don't suffer from a failure of imagination, Olivia. And of course, when you say this, and this was just a couple of months ago, I remember to otherwise smart people, they said, "Watch, you're suffering from TDS, Trump derangement syndrome. It can't happen here. The guardrails will hold." And I said, I take Trump literally and seriously. I know these people. I follow Stephen Miller, Kegseth, all of them. I read Project 2025. I know their end game. And furthermore, I listen to them. And Donald Trump in October, and anyone who watches the Left Talk, I probably mentioned this at least once or twice a day in October, he openly said, Olivia, that he quoted Hitler, as he does, and said that he will unleash the National Guard and the military against the quote enemy from within. And I tried my best on Piers Morgan's show, internationally, local shows. I said, folks, this is not normal. He's telling you what president has ever warned and threatened to unleash the National Guard against the quote enemy from within. And lo and behold, folks, it's September. The National Guard and military have been unleashed against the people of BC. I'm right here 20 minutes away from here. As Olivia said, there's no reason for it. It's just to normalize the presence of the military. Union Station, folks, just take my word for it. It's beautiful. It's actually a really nice. There's a Lululemon there, folks, okay? It is not a cesspool of crime and corruption. There's a Jamba Juice, all right? He is unleashing it in LA. The Supreme Court 2 days ago, this corrupt piece of shit Supreme Court, is pro-racial profiling, Olivia, gave him a thumbs up. I don't know if you saw that
I
clip. Did you see that
calling.
clip? Did you see that clip of that Fox News interview with Amy Comey Barrett that's going around where the interviewer said, so the 25th Amendment, no, Donald Trump can't run again, right? As he goes, yeah, that's what the Constitution says. That's what it says. That's what
It's never been tested.
it's never been tested. That's what, yeah. And we're like, and everyone else is like, no, the answer is no, he can't run again. So the fact that Amy Comey Barrett said that, I completely agree with you. I think he's laying the groundwork in real time to never leave. And I'm going to go take it a step further. And I said this yesterday. Donald Trump will not leave legally or peacefully. He will leave if as an incapacitated man or he's an old man as a dead man. But anyone who disagrees with me, they're attacking Venezuela. Lev Parnas was on yesterday. He said his sources said exactly what you said, that they want a war, and the war that they want is with Venezuela or Central America. Stephen Miller is going to connect the drug cartels to the invasion in America to keep
Yes.
America safe. They're going to nationalize more and more of the guards, normalize the presence of the military on U.S. soil. The beautiful bill, in addition to the $3 trillion cuts for the billionaires, also added $180 billion to ICE. So now we'll have 10,000 ICE agents. Olivia, you know this. They lowered the threshold to become an FBI agent and an ICE agent. So you don't need a college degree anymore to be an FBI agent. You just need to be basically a thug. So you have your own Gestapo. And I had Ari
Which
Berman
leads
on.
to, well, yes, which leads to by the fact when they do these raids and everything, I am just wondering what type of integrity, what type of actual background, what type of expertise, what type of any moral compass, other than loyalty to Donald Trump and Kash Patel and whatever they want to do their bidding, will happen in these situations. And that should really concern all of us, because this is really just now they're co-opting and undermining law enforcement and the rule of law.
Oh, speaking about national security, or rather insecurity, so you have the world's worst people as law enforcement who, instead of actually working on threats abroad, are seeing Americans and liberals and brown people as threats. And then, speaking to your point, Olivia, let's just tease it out. He's already attacking. He's going for voter suppression. He's going for attacking mail-in voting
Yep.
because Putin told him. He's gerrymandering openly. Um, suppose it's not enough. Suppose it's not enough, and he still seems like they're going to lose the House and the Senate. What I would do if I was Donald Trump and completely corrupt and had the House and the Senate and all these reeks is I would say the following: we're under invasion. Tren de Aragua, Venezuelans, El Salvador, immigrants, drug cartels. I'll pick one or two brown skinned immigrants who attacked a white lady. That's what they tried to do yesterday with the Ukrainian refugee. I'd say the power vested in me as the commander in chief, I have to declare martial law. I have to punt the midterm elections. Don't worry, I'll bring them back. You try to escalate, people will protest. Stephen Miller used the word insurrection. He'd call it an insurrection. You invoke the Insurrection Act, and then you
Yep.
crack skulls.
Well, and Trump has kind of already dropped a hint on that. Didn't he say, like, you can't hold an election during a war when he was talking about Ukraine? And he was like, I mean, if we had a war here, he's like, we couldn't hold it. I mean, he's insinuated, he's kind of hinted at it because, again, he always tells us he can't help himself. Right. So he probably just left a planning meeting. I mean, I'm kind of joking, but maybe not really. Where they probably were mapping this out in preparation, and he probably overheard some of it, and he walks out and he blurts it out. So, like, I think all of those scenarios are completely possible and likely.
Some people want a dictator, not me, but some people are saying it. He said that 2 weeks ago. And what you mentioned, I'm so glad you mentioned that point. That was with
Yes.
Zelensky. Oh, really?
Yes.
You can't have elections during wartime? Oh, that might be a good thing. And Zelensky's like, ha 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 ha. And everyone in the friggin' press corps, because they're all reeks, laughed. And the rest of us are like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa.
That was a major statement. Like, I mean, that wasn't lost on me. I
And
was
then the
like, oh, okay.
2028 hat. And Olivia, can I also ask you this? And I
Oh,
think we
God, the
take this
2028 hat.
jokingly. I saw a poll, and the fact that we normalize this in a hypothetical poll, Gavin Newsom versus Donald Trump, Gavin Newsom's winning by 1 point, and everyone's like, yeah, he's winning. And I'm like, this mother effer can't run again.
Why are we accepting that as a discussion point? But that's what they do. They repeat it over and over and over so that it actually becomes like real to everyone. And my concern is that, I mean, we are aware of what's happening, but my concern is there is a very large part of our population here in our country who have gotten swept into this, who will continue to get swept into this, and who are going to go along with it. And I think that that is what is incredibly disturbing is that, and they know that, which is why they have started to lay the kernels, the birdseed, and the messaging, because that is how they do things. And so, and you'll see it. Just watch the pivot, right? You and I will have to track this. We'll be like, okay, let's see, what's this podcast saying now? What hint is Joe Rogan like? I mean, that's kind of how it works, right? It goes out. What did Megyn Kelly say today? And you're going to see the slight pivot and shift where these kernels are going to start to be embedded into their segments because that is how this entire machine works. And it is incredibly disturbing and alarming. And I think we do need to be thinking about figuring out what does it look like for a 2028 scenario like this? Because the Republican Party has already shown us that they are going to back him on it.
Yep.
They're going
There you
to
go.
back this situation.
It's
I have no
Olivia.
doubt that they will.
You and me aren't elected officials. We aren't millionaires. We can only. I feel like I joke with my co-host Danielle of Democracy Ish. That we're like Paul Revere's, modern day Paul Revere's, but like we're black and brown, and you're like a Cuban brown. I'm gonna count you as an honorary brown woman. And instead of like saying, "Oh, look, it's Paul Revere. He's warning us," they just shoot us. They're like, "Ah, Cuban, a Muslim,"
Yeah,
and then
and
as we're dying, we're like, we just wanted to help you. We're trying to warn. And what
yeah,
more do people need to see, folks? Missouri just yesterday came out and said, okay, Donald Trump, you want us to gerrymander? We're gerrymander. The House
yeah.
Republicans, the state passed it. Texas just passed it. They're gonna do it to every single red state. They're all gonna bend the knee. Mike Johnson, super Christian, tried his best to protect Donald Trump on Friday from the Epstein scandal, which I do think is one of his major weaknesses. Olivia, I wanted to ask you about that. And he said, oh, he's an FBI informant. And then he walked it back
That
on
was
Monday.
that was insane. Like that. Where did he come up with that conspiracy? And the fact that the Speaker of the House actually openly stated that was ludicrous. and, and he had to walk it back, right? Because there was so much he got so much pushback that he eventually had to walk it back. But the fact that the Speaker of the House, a leader in our Congress,
There you go.
said it, like, and with like no hesitation, pushes this conspiracy out there, says everything you need to know about what these people are capable of. And I mean,
They
look,
are
I give
all
credit to
complicit.
Thomas Massey. I am giving him credit, and I give him
I'll
credit
give
for the fact that
credit
he's
to
taken a
Massey as
stand
well.
on this issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
respect to Massey, and then I'll also say I want to vomit in my mouth. She's terrible, and I want people to realize. Just stick with me. Everyone's praising Marjorie Taylor Greene. You don't have to praise her. She's terrible. Uh,
Yeah.
okay. Marjorie Taylor Greene is terrible. Lauren Boebert is terrible. You do not have to praise them, folks. The reason why they're on the right side of the America First angle and the reason why they're on the right side of the Epstein scandals is because they know their base. Marjorie
Yes.
Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert are of the extreme fringe, and the extreme fringe is now the mainstream of the MAGA base. And they know that their base, which is now the mainstream of MAGA, will not let go of the Epstein files, will not let go of America First. So they see where the wind is blowing, Olivia. And I think that's why. It's not because they care about women. It's not because they're good people. They're doing the right thing on this issue because they realize, oh shit, our base is not going to let this go, Olivia. That's my take on
No.
it.
Yeah, no. I mean, and they shouldn't. I mean, they should then stand by their base if that's what they want. And I think it's also by complete coincidence with these people the right thing to do. And and it's
There you go.
interesting. It's interesting
Coincidence.
watching coincidence. Yeah, and this is why I actually I like wrote a short blurb about Thomas Massey yesterday because I said he's one of the last remaining conscience of the last sort of line of conscience for the GOP, the fact that he's standing strong and we've already seen it. There's reporting this recently where they've already lined up, like the donors are lining up. The PAC is going after him in his election already. They're going to primary him. They're already talking about a Navy SEAL. And I actually talked about that because I was like, that if you are that Navy SEAL, that military officer, former military person who served our country, and you are willing to be that person, that tool to be used by Donald Trump against Massey, that says a lot about your character. And why? Why should your voters trust you in the future when it comes to victims or any other matter for that fact? Right? If you're willing to do this and you're going to take Massey on as their pawn. And that speaks to that person's character, right? And that was my point with that is just watching what's happening here in this machine and the fact that this is the pattern of behavior with the Republican Party repeats itself. This
And,
is
and
what
I
they do.
and I think it's a very important point that people still aren't waking up. They still aren't believing the evidence of their eyes and ears. They're still suffering from a failure of imagination because people assume incorrectly that it can't happen here. It has happened here. The coup was successful. You use the word regime. I use the word regime. We're dealing with an authoritarian regime. And Mike Johnson, super Christian, he went out of his way to be a reek to protect his king and daddy and said this obscene bullshit about him being an FBI informant, then walked it back. That's Mike Johnson. The House will bend the knee for Donald Trump. The Republicans and the Senate will bend the knee for Donald Trump. The Supreme Court, folks, is completely compromised. They're completely compromised. If you think I'm being outlandish, 2 days ago, Justice Kev in the emergency docket, they allowed Donald Trump to use racial profiling to go after brown and black people in LA. Can't use race to try to, equalize the playing field in colleges, but you could use race to racially profile people in LA, right? The media, corporate
Yeah,
media
that
is
was horrible.
completely bending the knee. CBS News, the ombudsman that they've brought on, the one thing that he's been consistent on is he's a reek for Donald Trump. So all these institutions are bending the knee. And then last Thursday night, I want to keep receipts. All these rich broligarchs, these Silicon Valley tech bros,
Oh,
all
that
of them
was a
came.
huge one.
Did you remember that? All of them came out and dined with Donald Trump. And Donald Trump said, Mark has promised to invest in America. How much money, Mark? And Mark was like, 600 billion. And then did you catch him off on the hot mic? Mark Zuckerberg then leaned in and said, I was unprepared. Was that number? Is that a good number? Did you like that number, Donald?
That is so pathetic. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
So
Yeah,
it's up to
was
us.
the CEO of Uber there? Wasn't he there? Didn't he attend?
Yeah, it was all that. It was Tim Apple, Zuckerberg, Gates was there. I think Elon Musk wasn't there. Interesting. One last question I want to ask you, Olivia, because I think it's important. And then Nick Parr, I'm talking to Nick Parr for the first time, who's watching us right now. Nick has a fantastic podcast. I'll be up at 1, and I kept Olivia longer, but there was so much to talk about. And I've told Olivia, let's do this every couple of weeks. Let's do
I
something
know
called
we need
national
to.
insecurity. Um, uh, People, when it comes to national security, people sometimes think, oh, wars. Now we have the Department of War. Another thing we didn't talk about, the Department of Defense got
Yeah.
renamed Department of War. Um, so much for America first, but also health, Olivia, health, climate change, viruses, they're all part of national security. And your
Yes.
take as a national security expert on RFK dismantling our public healthcare infrastructure and dismantling our vaccine system.
Look, I think that, again, back to the long-term repercussions of this being incredibly dangerous, this is monumental. And I think we have someone who spreads disinformation in everything that he says. I mean, that hearing was off the rails. What he was saying in it, that it showed just the extent of his insanity. And I think that, when we're seeing former CDC directors and we're seeing, I mean, the fact that Dr. Susan Menares, the morning of the hearing, released her opinion piece and said, this is what happened, and he wanted me to compromise vaccine panels and the board. That doesn't surprise me. I saw inklings of that kind of in the bullying happening during Trump 1.0, except for the fact that you had principled people who were trying to navigate the space and push back. Now we've got RFK at the helm here, who, by the way, we should not discount. And this is, if Trump is not, a candidate, and if we normalize this and he doesn't move out of the way, that RFK is also sort of been floated as potentially running as a candidate in 2028.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, the seriousness of that this individual is basically hurting our children, hurting communities, and it is dangerous, right? All of these propaganda things when it comes to serious things like medicine, when it comes to serious things with vaccines, I mean, I saw someone was like, polio's going to Disney World again. And I was like, wow, I mean, they're not lying because that is likely to happen. These are things that were created by science-based facts, science, and truth to help us and actually prevent deaths. And now we are rolling all of this back. And it's all part of the equation, right? And we're just weakening our country. And I think that is what I think MAGA people understand, that MAGA people like these Trump supporters and Republican Party supporters need to understand that it's hurting you. It's
Yeah.
hurting all of us, right? It's not going to discriminate. COVID doesn't discriminate. The flu doesn't discriminate against measles doesn't discriminate between what your political affiliation is, your beliefs, who you are. That's not how it works. Neither do natural disasters.
And folks, FEMA officials are warning as of 2 weeks ago, due to the cuts that
Yes.
the Trump administration has made to disaster relief and due to the incompetent leadership, completely unqualified leadership, where the leader, the acting head of FEMA, did not know that America had a hurricane season. FEMA officials are warning of, I'm going to quote them, a Katrina level disaster. And then speaking about RFK, and the reason why I talk about RFK a lot, and I'm going to bring Dr. Eric Feigl-Ding, is I don't think people have still processed that this is a national security disaster waiting to happen. People will
Yes.
die. And let me just quickly say this. If you now have sick Americans, two things will happen. People will die, people will get sick, but also it will impact America's relationship to the world. Less people will come here.
Yes.
And then also countries will say, you can't come if you're from Florida and haven't gotten the vaccine. So think about trade, think about tourism, think about health, think about sickness. No one's thinking about that, but
Across the board.
make America great again. We have a lot more to talk about. We covered a lot, Olivia. I'm impressed. In 55 minutes, we actually went down the list. Folks, this is Olivia Troye, national security expert. She has a Substack. We're going to shamelessly promote it. There's 1,500 people watching us. For the people who joined us late, this conversation will be up on my Substack and Olivia's Substack later today. We talked about how Donald Trump is completely compromised, how
Yep.
war criminals like Russia and Putin and Netanyahu are using him, how they're saber rattling, how they're testing the fence, how they're expanding their authoritarian agenda and wars to stay in power, how this will also impact what's happening at home, how Stephen Miller and Donald Trump will use these wars to declare martial law. We also talked about how the world is turning away from the United States. We're getting more isolated, and how Republicans, and I hope we're wrong, but I don't think we are, will go along with it every step of the way. We tried our best to connect the dots. Olivia, this is her bread and butter. She knows it. She wakes up every day, I'm sure, like sweating with one, sleeps with one eye open. Olivia,
Yes.
shamelessly promote yourself, please.
Yeah. I keep waiting for the FBI to show up at my door. I have a whole plan. Don't worry.
Inshallah, they won't. Inshallah, they won't. But where can people find you? Where can people support you?
So I'm here on Substack and on social media, and it's Olivia of Troy on Substack, and that's my handle on most social media handles. I'm on Threads and Instagram, Blue Sky, occasionally on X, as horrid as that platform is at times. But yeah, so I'll be here, and we will definitely do this again. We'll commiserate. You'll get the crazy, angry text messages from me.
Yeah.
Or be like, I'm hoarse because I have COVID, but I'm texting you because I'm mad.
I think if I looked at all the texts from yesterday, each one ended with at least two exclamation points. But it was completely warranted. And if you saw our text thread yesterday, it's all bad. It was like, let's talk about this and this. And she goes, but what about also this? And then late last night, I'm like, Olivia, Poland. She's like, or like, we just want to sleep. All right, folks. Thanks
Yeah.
all for joining. This has been The Left Hook. No paywalls. Become a subscriber. And in about 1 minute, come back. I'll be joining with Nick Paro. He has a fantastic Substack. He's a veteran who's been following our conversation. So I'll be talking to him in about 1 minute. Olivia, let's do this again. Heal thyself.
Yes. Take care. Thank you.
Bye.